I get a lot of one-offs. So I'll get
Okay.
somebody who sends me a track for something, and I might just need to like they'll want like a tic tac on something, or they'll want like something that's smooth. They'll like, oh, can you do something smooth, or just like sustains? Like I'll throw in like the ebo on something,
Oh,
just hold
wow.
it.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
just wonky, weird things.
Right. So there is a function for those things.
The ebo, yeah. Other than Michael Manring, right?
Right.
Just holding like
Exactly.
two of
Unless
them
you
at
want to do
once.
the man ring thing. What's up, folks? Welcome to episode 135 of the Bass Shed podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. All right, so it's been a little while since I released a podcast episode, but we are back in business and have some fantastic guests coming up. So please make sure to subscribe to the Bass Shed here on YouTube and click the little bell to get notified about new episodes that are coming out every week. All right, so this is the first episode of the Bass Shed podcast that I've done since the NAMM show. The NAMM show, NAMM 25. For everybody that was out there, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I'm sure you've heard me talk about NAMM before on previous episodes. I enjoy NAMM. I kind of like the manic nature of NAMM. It's a lot of fun. And I had a great time. It was cool to see that NAMM is coming back to itself and what it had been before COVID. So it only ran Thursday through Saturday this year. I went Thursday and Friday. Yeah, I went Thursday and Friday, and I was there with Jerry Jamont. Saturday he went. I didn't go. I had to do some teaching, and I had a gig that night. But Thursday and Friday were fantastic. I got to play some cool basses. There's a couple companies like I had been checking out online, so it was really cool to play the instruments in person. I was pleasantly surprised by some others look better than they felt. I'll leave it at that. I'm not naming names, but for me, that wasn't the bass, but they looked really, really cool. One bass that I really enjoyed playing was by LEH Basses. L. Ellis Hahn. LEH Basses. You may remember Ellis from episode 85 of the Bass Shed podcast. We'll have L. Ellis back on to talk about some new things, and that bass was fantastic, and maybe we can demystify and get some understanding about what made that bass so great. Another highlight of the NAMM show for me was I was at the Bass Magazine Awards show. That was fantastic. The folks over at Bass Magazine, John Dior and Chris Gisi, put together a fantastic show that had so many amazing bass players there. John Patitucci received the Lifetime Achievement Award. I believe that's what the award was called. And then he performed, it's always great to hear John play live. Who else was there? Justin Chancellor from Tool played. He played with Steve Bailey and Victor Wooten. I got a chance to hang out backstage, and I was there. It was all the cats. It was Marcus Miller, Nathan East, Wooten. Who else was back there? Tal Wilkenfield. There's so many folks hanging out. Oscar Cartaya. There was a lot of great bass players. I got a chance to hang with them, and that was really cool. And Jerry, so we're walking around, right? We're doing the NAMM show, and it's because we just published this book of Jerry's transcriptions. So he's going around with the with the book, and he's having everybody else sign it. He's treating it like it's a high school yearbook or something. It was hilarious. And then I think after day one, I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You're treating this thing like a yearbook. What's going on, man? Like, you should be signing other people's. He's like, nah, man, it's cool to have them as part of the whole thing. Like, it took everybody I knew for these bass lines to come alive, and I want them to be a part of it. And that was a beautiful thing that Jerry was doing. And it was everybody, not just bass players, and not just, famous bass players, and not just bass players he knew. There were some folks I ran into there that I knew that Jerry didn't know, and Jerry had them sign it. Everybody at every booth we went to, maybe even the woman selling pizza. I don't know. Everybody got a chance to sign Jerry's copy of the transcription book. And that was really cool. That being said, the transcription book is available at thebassshedacademy.org. Just go to the website. There's links in the show notes to the book. And Jerry ran into some friends at the NAMM show and had them say a few nice words about it as well.
Hey, this is Gerald Jones, here to introduce you to Jerry Jamont's transcription book of 15 timeless bass lines, available at bassshedacademy.org. Please check this book out. A lot of information, a lot of history, and of course it's by the great Jerry Jamont.
All right, on the episode is Steve Rosati. Steve, also known online as Steve the Bass Guy, is of course a professional bass player. He's an educator as well as an author and contributor to Bass Musician magazine. Check out the work he's done for the magazine. There will be links in the show notes. Steve is a true bass player. Like right out of the gate, he was challenging he was challenging my flatwound string choice, which I have right after the interview. Like I went right to the Amp Shop Bass Exchange in North Hollywood and got a set of labellas. So Steve, thank you for that. And those strings are killing. I love those strings. I have a set on the PJ and also the 5-string. That's just kind of my workhorse. Anyways, Steve covers all things. Steve covers education. We talk about gigging. We obviously talk about gear. It was a fantastic time. I had been following Steve online for quite some time, and it was great to finally have him on the podcast. So here it is. Here's my talk with Steve Rosati, aka Steve the Bass Guy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. How about yourself?
Doing all right. You got a nice collection back there.
I got a few. There's some on the side over here too.
Nice. What's the P right there? What's the P on the floor?
That's a 69P.
Ooh, all original?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
I did some research before we were talking. I know you got a Federa and you studied with a lot of modern players.
I did.
Do you have an affinity for the vintage gear also?
I do now.
Yeah. What changed it? What changed it?
Well, I don't know. I started. I was always kind of in the mix with a lot of the high-end basses. You know, I used to go to Federa a lot to hang out.
Yeah.
I studied with Matt Garrison, Tony Gray, Yannick.
Sure.
And I loved that. And then it's like, I started getting more into like Motown and soul.
Yeah.
And, that kind of, it was like, I've had P basses my whole life, but I kind of circled back around and it was just the right thing to do. And now it's like, let me adjust this a little bit. It's like, that's pretty much my main go-to. I did pick up, I do have a Music Man Stingray that I just got. And that's kind of my new collection piece, but,
nice. What year?
It's 20, I think it's a 2023.
Okay. So it's a newer one. Yeah.
It's a modern. It's, I have it sitting over here. Let me grab, I'll show you. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, nice.
It's got that. I think.
Yeah, what is that like? What do they call that color? It's a
snowy white.
Snowy white. For the audio version of this, it's a burst, and there's like a bluish purple to white burst on it.
It almost has that Antigua kind of feel to it a little bit, but it's got a sparkle in it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's a unique piece. It's definitely cool, and this one. I don't know if you've been following, but I'm almost exclusively flats.
Yeah.
And labella, and these are actually the polished labella strings, which I found out about them through Ian Allison.
Okay.
And he turned me on to them about a year ago, and I found out about them, tried them out, and I've been using them on this because I wanted somewhere between flats and rounds, because it felt a little wrong to only have flat wounds on a
right
Stingray.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's and this might be an interesting topic. When playing flats, like I was playing half wounds for years and years. Like half wounds were my thing. And then I did the full commitment to flats. And then as soon as I put them on, I'm like, oh, there's no bite. Like I'm not getting the cut.
Wrong flats.
Well, yeah, right. So I haven't checked out labellas yet. They're on my list, and Jamont got me into them. Like I played his bass.
I have labellas. I have the tape wounds. I have them on both of my uprights here. Have labellas on them.
Okay.
Even the this wonky beast.
I see an electric upright. You have an acoustic upright also?
Oh yeah, it's in the other corner over here.
Nice.
You ever see a? And that's a tenor guitar, which is
Okay.
kind of interesting. I
Yeah,
use that for
those are
students.
rare for students.
Not really. Eastwood makes them, and they're kind of fun because I have it tuned like a piccolo bass.
Okay.
So I use it when I'm teaching because I have a student who's playing through something I can chord and play all the bass shapes on chords on that.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. Rare in the fact of they're not commonly owned. Like it's a
Oh
not a
yeah,
lot of people have the tenor guitar.
no,
Most of the people I know that own them are studio guys that for like Motown style records will double the bass line on a guitar.
I have a bass six too over there that I like for that
Okay.
too.
Okay. Nice. Nice. You do a lot of home recording?
I do. I do. I get I get a lot of one-offs. So I'll get
Okay.
somebody who sends me a track for something, and I might just need to like they'll want like a tic tac on something, or they'll want like something that's smooth. They'll like, oh, can you do something smooth, or just like sustains? Like I'll throw in like the ebo on something,
Oh,
just hold
wow.
it,
Okay. Okay.
just wonky weird things.
Right. So there is a function for those things.
The ebo, yeah. Other than Michael Manring, right?
Right.
Just holding like
Exactly.
two of
Unless
them
you
at
want to do
once.
the man ring thing.
Yeah, you
Um,
don't. They're great for sustain, and they create some really cool effects. Like even
mhm.
if you're layering it, in a recording
Okay.
process, it's really cool if you do like a sustained note and then play on top of it. It gives you some of that like that '80s vibe, for that like RPG, like that early jazz, like that jazz period. If you're looking for that like sustainy kind of like
Right.
synthy sound.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's dig in. Let's dig into your personal history. You come from a
Sure.
long line of musicians.
Yeah.
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 So bass players also, correct?
No, no. Actually, my my dad's a piano player. He's a
Okay.
singer. My grandfather was a singer, and my great grandfather was a guitar player.
Okay. Okay.
And yeah, he was like a gypsy jazz guitar player.
Nice. Nice. I was
So,
just talking to a friend about that. We were talking about Borelli Legrin and like all the
oh
stuff he
man,
did and all the stuff he did with
monster.
Jocko, and that was the conversation. But then the conversation went into like the bass players that play in the gypsy jazz thing. They're
Oh
just
yeah.
boom, boom, boom,
Well,
boom, like
Dominic
unrelenting.
DiPiazza. I mean,
Hmm.
he's that dude is a monster. I mean,
Yeah.
his playing him with Borelli is just as impressive. I don't know if you ever heard Front Page
No,
with
I haven't heard that one.
that's DiPiazza, Borelli, and on drums is Maryland. Oh my God, I can't think of his name. I'm brain farting.
It's all right. It's all right.
It's who is that on there? It's major player, major
Okay.
drummer. But
Okay.
that it's called Front Page, and it's amazing fusion album. But Borelli, like they're smoking on it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so good.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So then what was it coming up from the lineage of musicians that when did the bass grab you?
I started playing when I was about 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always kind of like plunking around my dad's keyboards and pianos and like playing like low end stuff. And I started playing bass. I had like the guitar that was broken strings,
Yeah,
plunking
yeah.
around on that.
Sure.
And then I got like my first short, like not even, it wasn't even a short scale. It was just like it just wasn't good. But you kind of worked through it for a while to make it work.
Right,
And
use
then
what you got.
yeah. And then eventually it was like it was just there. It wasn't like I was serious about it until like high school. And high school was like where I had a good friend named Jeremy Holmes who was like a phenomenal drummer, bass player. He played like everything. And the dude was like he was just so inspirational like to hang out with. And we used to skate together and we'd talk about music.
Yeah, yeah.
And this dude had like an amazing ear and like he just kind of inspired me and like with him and that we had such a great circle of people. A buddy of mine who's Mike Bowen. You probably don't know him, but he's been a drum tech for like every huge metal band for like the last 20 years, like
Okay.
Hatebreed, Lamb of God. He's out with Ghost right now, but we
Okay.
used to have this circle of people that used to like just play, and it was like that perfect time of like that 90s.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, the music was interesting. You had a lot of
Right.
like different styles. I mean, Primus was huge. They were
Yeah.
like super inspirational.
Sure.
Tool was there. You're like, oh my God.
Did you kind of I mean you mentioned studying with Tony Gray and Matt
Mhm.
Garrison and Yannick, uh modern fusion electric jazz guys. Did you come into it all via metal and
No,
punk?
no. I actually, when I was a kid, I mean, my dad, we used to listen to Miles Davis all the time. Like we listened to like
Nice.
Kind of Blue.
Okay.
So like and Coltrane, like we listened to a lot of like Giant Steps.
Okay.
And my dad was really into like blues. He was into like a lot of progressive rock stuff too.
Hmm.
So we used to listen to he I just remember like Saturday mornings he'd go and throw a record on and we would just it'd fill the house and
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
just like awesome and we would listen to like the Alan Parsons Project, or that
Okay.
would come on
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he'd throw on just these different things and it was like it was always like something something in the house was there and it was like it was in it kind of inspired me. It was like
Sure.
it kind of sat in the background, but I mean I came as every kid in the 90s, late 80s, I was listening to like rap. Rap was actually like at that period had a lot of really great bass lines.
I mean, Snoop sampled like a ton of Parliament,
Oh yeah, of course.
so like it's like that was legit music.
Dr. Dre, Ice
Yeah.
Cube, and then
All that stuff.
NWA, they were sampling great stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
they had their ear. I mean, that's when DJs would go and find really rare vinyl, like Diggable Planets. You remember them? They were always finding these like really rare pieces, and that actually led me like I always listened to jazz, but was in that period that I kind of went outside and like
Yeah,
started
yeah.
listening like Medeski, Martin and Wood.
Nice. Okay.
So Medeski, Martin and Wood was kind of like my drug of choice. They got kind of like
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
like I gave up electric bass for almost 5 years and only played
Really?
upright. Yeah,
Okay.
I still
Okay.
actually have my second upright still that I got as when I was in high school,
Okay.
and and I still have it sitting right here. I'm looking at it right now.
What is it? Like an all laminate or a solid top?
It's a 1922 Roth.
Oh yeah, yeah. My
So
first bass with the Roth too.
yeah, German bass. It's great.
Sure.
I have that, and then I have one of the Zeta basses.
Okay.
This one was unique because Kerry Nordstrand actually made this one
Oh wow. Okay.
because Kerry worked over at Zeta
I
for I
didn't
guess
know
a
that
minute.
actually. Okay.
Yeah, I talked to him when I first got it. God, that was like 2016. I was
Hmm.
like, hey man, I was like, what do you know about this? And he's like, well, I was working over at the shop. I think it was one of the ones I was working on. I was like, okay,
Amazing. Well, then you can tell me what's going on with it.
yeah.
I did, man. So the only electric upright I ever owned was the Ned Steinberg, um,
I had one of those for a minute.
and it was cool. It was cool, but around
The
the
tele
time, like I had to put to talk to that point, the tone. I had to put legit upright strings on it because
Yeah,
those Dio Dario like hybrids that it comes with, like
yeah.
those are pretty sorry in
Well,
my opinion.
D'Addario makes a really nice upright string. They have the
Hmm.
Helicores, which are
Right.
really nice. They were like a hot thing for a minute.
Yeah.
But the problem is with the NSs, it's form over function is what I see,
Yes.
and that's always been my problem with it. I know
Well
those
put.
guys, like I know from going to the NAMM show, those guys are
Sure.
great, and it's a cool design, but it's missing the shoulder that you need as an upright bass player. You want that physical connection of the bass to your body.
Yes.
You
Right.
want that shoulder. You want to feel that vibration in your gut.
Hmm.
And there's a couple things wrong with it. There's the telescoping tripod, which seems like a great idea. And there's some guys who love it. I mean, Bikiti Kamolo plays one. He's got one and he seems to love it. There's a couple other guys I know through the Phil Jones booth
Sure.
that love it. And it's a neat design. It's very cool as a telescope, but when you want to play it and you want to dig in on it, it's missing that bout and it's missing it. It's not a dance partner.
No, no, no. Well put again. Like so when I got it, it had the tripod thing and it was stationary, and then they came out with the end pin that had that kind of spacer that went around your waist.
Yeah, that brace. Yeah, it
Yeah,
almost
but
felt
that's
like
not where
somebody.
the upright. That's not where the body connects with the upright. The body connects on
No.
the upper bout.
Yeah.
To like your sternum, and it's like,
Well,
well, this feels awkward, and the spacing is weird, and playing up in thumb is goofy because there's no, your arm doesn't have to go over.
yeah, you don't have the landmarks that tell you where you move into thumb position on it,
Right,
which
right,
is
like the
always kind of
joint
weird.
and then the
Yep.
bout. Yeah,
Yep. And I think it's almost like it's very akin to that Ibanez one that they make. It looks very similar. Do you ever see the Ibanez upright? That one's
uh,
on a 34 scale though versus a
I might
42,
have played
42 and a half.
that. I think I checked that out at this past NAMM. That was the first time I'd played it.
They're interesting. I mean, Ibanez, uh, they're okay. You know,
Yeah.
they are what they are,
Sure.
and they're great. They're great for some people, and they definitely have their niche, and it's a great entry level instrument. You know,
Hmm.
and I mean, even if you find some of the old Ibanez P basses that they made, the lawsuit ones, those are
Okay.
actually really cool.
The lawsuit ones. What's the
Yeah.
lawsuit? I don't know about the lawsuit. Are you talking about like the Road Stars? Like those
No,
old P
before
bass?
that, no. There's actually Ibanez's out there that look like Fender P basses.
Oh, okay.
They're the lawsuit ones that they were sued over because they look too familiar. And there's a number of guitars like that out there that they're called the lawsuit guitars.
Yeah.
And there was one I was eyeing up because it was just so interesting. Somebody was
Yeah.
selling it on Reverb, and I was like, I think I want to buy that.
Yeah.
But
Did
I'm
you?
sure I don't know how I didn't buy it.
No.
No, I couldn't justify it.
Right. Right.
I
Financially or as a bass player?
as a bass player, I mean, I have another 70. I have a 74 P bass here,
Okay.
uh, that I love too. And this one,
Good.
I have, if I'm going to go with P basses, I also have a Music Man
Yeah.
P
Yeah.
bass too. This, which is the Cutlass. So it's like I couldn't justify another P bass, you know.
Right. Right. Right.
So
That's not what most people say. Most people can always justify another P bass. Okay, this is actually. I was talking about this on the show a couple episodes ago.
sure,
The 5-string P bass.
yeah.
Now I've talked to some pros, and they're like, "Man, I own one, but it's just like it's not a P bass. It's just not a P bass."
Why not?
I think. Well, I remember talking to Mike Valerio about it, and Mike was like, "Man, I don't know." We were talking about pickups and like where you put the big magnet versus the small magnet, on in the stack. And I'm like, "That's interesting."
I mean,
And
it's just elongated. It's not really. I mean, it's still in that sweet spot. Even if you line them up next to each other, they look very similar in that spacing.
sure,
It's just the one pickup is slightly
right,
elongated out.
yeah. And then I have seen some companies put the elongated, portion on the treble side. Some put it on the bass side. I
Yeah.
don't. I don't know if that's really been what the science there is.
Well,
I'm
if it's not a
interested in
Fender, it's
it.
not a P bass, right? I mean, that's the thing.
Maybe that's where he was going. I mean, he owns a number of, and I don't want to throw any shade to Mike Valerio. He's killer.
No, no.
But do you own a 5-string P?
The only five string I own.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I only own one, and it's actually it's an M bass.
Okay.
This is actually this is John McGinney from McGinney Guitars. This was when he made this. This was actually modeled after it's the Brooklyn series, but it's very similar to my old Federa.
Okay.
Which is funny. I don't know if you saw. Like, I don't own a Federa anymore. I've had one. I had mine for a very long time, and I just kind of parted ways with it.
Oh, what was that? What was that grieving process like?
It wasn't a grieving process because I traded it actually for this.
Okay. Yeah,
This
yeah.
is the Bobby Vega Halfling.
Okay.
So this bass in itself, it was a growing process. I wanted, being that somebody who likes acoustic sounds as well, I wanted something that could actually move between the acoustic world and the electric world.
Sure.
And it was these things aren't cheap.
Right,
So
right.
I had to decide, was it worth moving from my Federa to something else? And
Is it
was,
roughly the price point of a Federa? Or are we talking
Yes.
like 5-6 grand?
you're talking like, I think these are now. I saw one on. I think used. I saw one for about 7 on
Yeah. Okay.
Reverb.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they're not cheap, and I mean Tom Rebecki only makes a couple a year.
Okay. Where's he based out of?
He is out of Northern California.
Okay.
Bobby, if you know Bobby Vega at all, or you're familiar with Bobby, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Bobby's a monster.
Sure.
And the original was the Bobby Vega line, but he does make another one that's similar for Jack Cassidy.
Okay.
And it's called the Diana bass.
Okay.
They're interesting. He makes a really cool 5-string. But as weaving back to your original question,
yeah.
I only own one 5-string. I'm not a 5-string player. I've had a couple 6s in the past. I like symmetry.
Yeah, okay.
I like 4s. 6s. I like the concept of 6. I can never. It just isn't me. I
I like the concept of 6-2. I can't. I mean, I've been playing fives so long that, and then I strung one of my basses up with a high C to check that out, and I couldn't wrap my mind around like that's not the B string anymore.
yeah,
Like
that's the M bass.
just
The M
that's
bass is
is it
high
strung with a
C.
C? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was that was John did that before I got to it, and I like the high C. It's a cool concept. It's very swallowish.
Sure.
So, but Swallow, Garrison, all those guys were
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
high C. Hadrian, they were
Right.
all using the high C, and you're right. If you're used to a certain placement, it's like you know your fingerboard inside and out, and all of a sudden you add another string or you change it. All of a sudden it's kind of wonky.
Yeah, it's like I've never played or something, and I'm just like
Yeah.
staring at it. So that was a short-lived experiment.
Well, one of the things I found is really cool for bass players. I started playing banjo about
Yeah,
a
I
year
see
ago.
one back there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a five string, which it's fun because tuning them and just if you're doing like tremolo style picking already on bass, it almost lends itself to the banjo. So when you start to play on it, it's a lot of fun, and it just gives you another. Maybe you probably won't ever play it out, but
Right.
but it's fun to expand and try different techniques and see how they
Sure.
work on it.
Sure. What from studying with Garrison and Yannick and Tony, what is your right hand technique, and how does that parlay into flats on a P bass? Like,
Yeah, that's
because
a
those are
great question.
those are two very different approaches.
Well, my move to flats, I was using at one point I was using the Hellborg. You remember the Hellborg strings? The DR Hellborgs that had
Yeah,
the single
okay.
winding?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I was coming from those on the Federa, and I was teaching at a place called Bass Specialties in Philly. And I had access to almost every string possible because Glenn had just every string at that place. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something out of the blue. I'm going to run flats on the Federa.
Okay.
But the Federa, I mean, when I talked with that bass, I mean, that was it's an Anthony Jackson. It's actually available. If somebody has an extra $13,000,
You're just kind of kicking around. You look in your sock drawer.
I'm not selling it. It's currently available on Reverb. So if you look it up, it's the
Okay.
Anthony Jackson. It's a four string. It's not the hollow body one, but it has a chestnut top. But that bass was a 35-inch scale four string with 28 frets.
Oh wow.
And it was a P bass. I mean, that's the concept behind it was a P bass, And I just was like, you know what? Let's try some flats on it, and started using flats, and it just kind of went there. Now my technique, I can still do tremolo stuff. I can play all that stuff. I find myself, I would rather play something solid and melodic
Sure.
than just do flourishes all over the place.
Right,
And there's
right.
a place for it, and there's definitely people who do it really, really well, and they have the right project for it. Most of the projects I'm playing in now, it's like, the stuff that I like my band. It's like we do a lot of like, I mean, it's a cover band, so we're covering like whatever we feel like. It's like we'll go from like we were playing like Cochise into like Black Sabbath into like
Okay.
a lot of Zeppelin, and then we'll do like Charles Bradley, so we're going between this wide array, and because it's like
Yeah.
we're like, we're just like play the things we like.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you like? What do you want to play? I don't know. Let's play that.
Right.
We're doing some soul coughing for a minute because nobody
Okay.
else was doing it.
Yeah.
Except soul coughing, they're back on tour.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they were out for a minute. I saw those guys were back out, and that's awesome. Those
Yeah.
guys were great.
Yeah. So no jazz fusion projects, no reverb pedal on the bass when you
no,
solo.
No, there's the jazz fusion stuff. I live on the East Coast, and there isn't a whole lot of need for or want for jazz fusion.
Right.
I mean, at the heart of it, I would rather. I'm more traditional anyway. Like I like trad jazz. I would rather
okay.
play straight ahead. But we've covered all the stuff. Like we've done. We used to have a project with vibes, bass, drums, and guitar, and we would do all the weather report stuff with the vibes
Oh, that's cool.
instead of synth.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a cool thing. But there's no money in it, you know. It's you run a project until you can't pay for it anymore, and then you move on to something else.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's no money in the industry.
Yeah, right. Now, when you talk about trad, what that means to me on the West Coast is old Louis Armstrong, where you're just playing in two, you're playing tunes like Dinah or Up a Lazy River, like super
I'm thinking all
trad.
the things you are, there'll never be another you.
Okay,
You know,
songbook, classic
yeah,
jazz.
yeah, like
Okay,
American songbook stuff. Yeah,
okay,
like that's kind of our take on it here. It's like, okay, so what are you going for that? And it's like a lot of American songbook. I like this stuff. Again, there's not a market for it here.
sure.
But education, I always teach it
Yeah.
because there's pedagogy for it versus, like I'll start with jazz. Like I have a couple students that are coming actually in at 1 o'clock
Okay.
and my time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're working on, we'll work on like blues and then go into like all the things you are, because we're working through form and structure and understanding chord changes
Sure.
and what that means. And then at the end it's like, okay, well let's look at John Paul Jones. Let's understand what he was doing over Ramble On. Like how does that work? How do these pieces work together?
Sure.
I mean, I think Ellington said there's only two kinds of good music. There's good and bad,
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I mean it's everybody was influenced, I mean, the only way you heard stuff was like by buying the records, and so
Yep.
everybody, all that stuff, from Miles and Billie Holiday would influence you too, and like they were listening to it, and they were checking it out, so there's a lot of cross pollination there.
Yeah, there is. And and the cool thing is like when you have like, especially like if you're using like standards or the real book or something like that, you have the ability as a bass player to not only hear, like I always use the real book if I'm going to teach with it as a guide for the song, right? We're going
Yeah.
to listen to the song and we're going to read through it and try to understand it. So we're going to use it as a guide for understanding theory, for understanding how to read music. And then we're gonna write out our fingering so we understand, hey, these are the places I can play it. And then as we move through that, we might move into like Joni Mitchell. We might move
Sure.
into like Sia. We'll go to Sia Furler and like I'll have you play the melody, like listen to what she's singing and try to comp the melody on bass.
Yeah.
Because then you learn those lines and those lines become part of your they're part of your licks. Like,
Right,
hey, I
right.
know this melodic idea, this motif that I can play in a solo if you're going to take a solo, if
Yeah.
you have one.
Right.
Or even if if it's a structure you're throwing over. It's like I was watching Pino Palladino like recently, and that man is amazing.
Yes.
Like Pino is much respect, right?
Yeah.
That when he played was it where you hang your hat, or what's the name of that song? He has that riff that he plays that's actually it's a classical riff. It's
What record?
it's old. It's that I don't know. Let me see. It's that lick. Let me see if I get that. I apologize. I'm a little I wasn't planning on for this, but it's that
That's
line
fine.
that he plays that's like that so he does it. Shoot, what is it? That's where I hang my hat, but that's actually a classical lick that he's throwing in there. That's actually off of what is that? I forgot what he said that was, but it's this motif. It's this classical motif, and he's just adding it in. It just looks so amazing. It sounds amazing, and it's part of the structure of the pop song. Actually, what is that? It's where. Let me look it up real quick for you.
Yeah.
While we're talking. But that's cool.
I mean, one of my things that I love about Pino's playing is where he puts his fills. Not only what his
Yes.
fills are, but how he plays them is genius. Just articulation and feel, but placement. Like it's not going to be the typical end of a 4-bar phrase or anything. It's on first listen, it seems random, but there's a deep connection to where and why they happen with the way they do,
Absolutely.
and it's so killing.
Absolutely. Well, the man was able to move from D'Angelo to Nine Inch Nails to The Who.
I know, I
I mean,
know, I know.
that is that's
Yeah,
just so impressive on its own. Like to be able to be that much of a chameleon.
yeah.
Shoot, I can't find. I know maybe I'm looking for the wrong title. I'm not prepared for it. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about
No
that.
worries.
That structure is just so awesome. But
Yeah,
taking those melodic lines and taking an instrument that's not a bass instrument, learning that melody, and then applying it into a bass context
sure,
is really cool.
sure. So you have students go through that with just learning like pop melodies or melodies in general, or
Melodies.
transcribing other soloists.
I used to do a lot of sax solos,
Okay.
and sax is cool, but I actually moved away from sax and more to vocal melodies.
Okay.
And I found that like especially for my younger students, it's easier for them to grab onto vocalizations
Hmm.
because words like when you think about how words are phrased and the rhythms of words, it's a lot easier for them to kind of grab onto and contextualize the rhythm of it, right?
We'll be back right after this.
Folks, the middle of the show is for the listeners. Support the show that supports you. If you have a new record coming out, if your band is doing some tour dates, if you have a new teaching platform, whatever your news is, whatever your contribution is to uplift the bass community that you would like to talk about, and have talked about on the Bass Shed podcast, hit me up and get featured. Click the link in the show notes and get featured on the Bass Shed podcast. LemurMusic.com. Everything you need for the double bass can be found at Lemur Music. And now they're doing electric basses. So they have a nice, I don't know what the word is, array. They got they got a nice stock. They have a nice inventory of Fenders over there at Lemur, and they had this vintage 2 1960s P bass in Daphne blue. This is my favorite electric bass in the shop, right? I love that bass. And then not too long ago, maybe a week or so ago, week and a half, I don't know, the bass got sold, right? A gentleman bought the bass, and Lemur had posted, welcome to the bass family for the gentleman that purchased the bass. And I'm like, oh man, he bought the bass. I loved playing every time I was in there. Thankfully, the gentleman signed up for lessons, and so now he's a student of mine. And, maybe I'll get a chance to play the bass some more. But there's a fantastic electric bass purchased at Lemur Music. Stop by lemurmusic.com. Use the promo code TheBassShed, all one word, for 10% off.
Excellent, sir.
And then when you hear somebody sing that, you start to familiarize yourself with it and you start to play it and you're like, oh, I hear how this functions. What if I
Right.
move this down an octave and play part of it or just a lick of it?
Yeah,
It just
yeah, yeah.
kind of becomes amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Besides the cover band, do you have some other projects brewing? Do you write?
Yeah, I do. I'm always putting stuff. I'm always like dabbling.
Okay.
I do a lot of like little video shorts on YouTube. So I'm normally like recording something, I have an idea, and I start to slap it together, and I'll stick it on YouTube to see if it gets any traction. If it doesn't, then it's like okay,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's just an idea. I'm also currently working with a guy named Chuck Hammer. I don't know if you know him at all.
Chuck Hammer?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
So Chuck has a set of albums called Guitar Architecture.
Okay.
But he was the guitar player for Bowie on Ashes to Ashes, like that
Nice.
synth guitar.
Okay.
And he also was, he worked with Lou Reed for a number of years. He's actually out at Abbey Road right now doing some remastering
Sick.
for that. But we have a project when he gets back in the States. We're supposed to be getting together and working on something new coming out.
Nice. Man, I heard that a friend of mine who was working at East West here in Los Angeles, and he moved over there to London, and he was looking for a job, and so he hit up Abbey Road and was interviewed. Apparently, Abbey Road was going to be renovating. Did you hear about this, or do you know about this?
I did not know about that.
That's I don't know. I haven't checked in with him since he's been over there, but I had heard that. I thought maybe Chuck had something to say.
Well, I think Chuck's in doing remastering, so I'm not sure. They're probably not in the main studio. I know he had to grab all his old tapes and bring all that over because I guess there's like there's a ton of work that he did with Lou Reed. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but I don't I don't really know the inside scoop. I wish I
Yeah,
did.
I don't either. I mean, there's so many scoops you can hold on to mentally. Like I can't keep track of it all. You
True,
hear
true.
things in passing, like, oh, that's interesting. If the idea comes up, maybe I'll ask somebody who might know something. Just
And
kind of
it's
keep a pin in it. But I don't. I'm not gonna really follow up on it or read a blog about it or anything.
yeah, yeah, I got
Like
you.
yeah, like whatever.
I
So
mean,
that sounds like a cool project though.
yeah, it is. It's Chuck. Chuck did an album with Billy. It was Billy Martin. It was Jamaluddin Takuma and Jamie. What's Jamie's last name? Not Jamie. Bill. Jamie Saft.
Okay.
It was called Blind versus Blind. So that he's been doing projects like this, and he's just been trying to pull in different guys and kind of work with them. So it's some interesting stuff. But his that album Blind on Blind is really interesting,
Okay. Okay.
and that's Jamaluddin. If you know Jamaluddin Takuma,
Okay. No, I don't. I don't.
bass player, famous bass player from Philly.
Okay. Okay. Is that where you live currently? Is Philly?
I'm north of Philly, so I'm in the Lehigh Valley area.
Okay.
So I'm about 80 miles north of Philly and about 95 miles out of New York City.
That's kind of a sweet spot.
It's kind of the armpit of the East. We have a lot of folks who move here.
Is that what it says on the license plate?
That's what it does say. The armpit of the East. Yeah. We're like a bedroom community, which is really funny because
Okay.
the Kimmocks live here. If you know Steve Kimmock, John Kimmock.
I don't know
Yeah.
that. I mean, I know I've heard the name, but
Steve replaced Jerry Garcia in The Dead when
Okay.
Jerry passed away.
Okay.
And John plays with Mike Gordon. He plays with O'Teal Burbridge.
sure.
John was the groomsman in my wedding. Like,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I played with his dad for a long time too, like off and on in the area.
Nice.
So the Kimmock connection. But we also have Bakiti Kamolo lives here. Ronnie
Okay.
Holmes lives here. Portnoy lives here.
Okay.
So we got like all these people that moved in out of the city, and we're like, okay, well, where's this armpit?
Yeah.
And they found it in the Lehigh Valley.
So is it? Why do you call it an armpit?
It's just when you think about the connection, you have Philadelphia, and then you have New York. It's almost like a right angle, so it's kind of that midpoint.
Okay. Okay. But it's not because it's just like crappy neighborhoods.
Oh no, the Lehigh
Okay.
Valley is actually pretty cool. It's just if it was between 2 points, it's kind of like you're coming in and then going down. So it's kind of
Right.
like a right angle.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's-
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't think I've ever. I've been to New York a few times. I've been to Philly once.
I'm sorry.
We were playing at the Tower. Like I think I was in and out, and like
Okay.
we did 2 nights there, and then it was out. So I
Played the
didn't even
World
have
Cafe
enough time.
Live. That was awesome.
Where's that?
World Cafe Live. That's in Philly. It's a pretty cool spot.
Okay.
I played there with the Monophonics.
Oh, nice, nice.
Did a subbed in for a tour with them a while back because it was a last minute gig. I don't know if you know. So I write for Bass Musician Magazine.
I did know that. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that actually.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I Bikiti. It was kind of a really wild thing. Bikiti had a gig that he was supposed to go out. Bikiti Kamolo was Paul Simon's bass player.
Sure.
And he's a
Yeah,
friend of
he's
mine.
been on, and he's a sweetheart.
Oh, he's
Sweetheart
great. I
of
love
God,
Bikini.
yeah.
It was a last minute gig, and he called me up on a Wednesday and was like, "Hey, man," he's like, "Can you sub for me for a gig?" I was like, "Sure, man. When is it?" He's like, "Tomorrow." I was like, "What are we doing?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's like 3 songs." I'm like, 3 songs, okay. So I get in contact with him. It turns out it's 30 songs, and it was like a run. So it was like 4 days. It was just I was joining them on the tour on the East Coast because they're actually out of they're out like the Haight-Ashbury area.
Okay. Sure.
And they were like I met up with them in DC and we just did like the Rams Head. We played like 4 or 5 shows ending with Floyd Fest.
Okay.
It was like I literally learned I had to get a rental car and drive down because my car at the time wasn't working well. So they got me a rental car. I drove down and met them. I learned their songs while I was driving down to meet them. The first gig was that night. And it turned
Yeah.
out it was like 30 songs. I'm like writing and like we're driving down, like marking out like what the tune is, like trying to memorize it.
Yeah. Yeah, was it just a bunch of chicken scratch with forms and rhythmic ideas?
Well, luckily their stuff was so melodic. It was
Yeah.
it was so it was kind of easy to pick up like the hit parts. But I
Okay.
was like, okay, well, what's in between? Where do you drop out? Where's the? It's
Right.
always like the hits are easy. It's knowing where you need to be quiet, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Bass comes out. Okay, don't play
Right.
here,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
because nothing's worse than being that last person and you hit that note and you're like, oh, I just messed
Yeah,
up.
yeah. Oops. My bad.
But
Yeah.
that was quite a experience. And the reason I brought up bass musician is I actually documented it because
Okay.
it was such a weird thing. It was like, okay, you get the call. What do you do?
Yeah.
Normally you're like, hey, I have a couple weeks to prep. Now you got about 12 hours.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. And then it was just a cram fest.
It was a cram fest. Yeah, it was like literally I finished teaching. And while I was teaching, I was like, okay, let's learn this song together.
Yeah.
Start bringing those songs into the lesson. You're like, hey, I just
Your
discovered
lesson
this.
today is to transcribe half of my work tape.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, that was, I mean, as a teacher, like, so like as a private lesson teacher, I taught as in a high school as a music teacher as well.
Okay.
But a lot of times, like when you're like, I still take lessons. If I can take a lesson, I'll take a lesson. I want to
Sure.
learn.
Yeah, yeah.
I like that education platform. Like I love to be connected and learn something. And what I like to do is the things that I'm learning, I like to see if I know them enough to explain them to somebody else because it solidifies the idea.
That's right.
So even if I'm like learning music, it's like, hey, if I know this well enough to show somebody else, then I can move forward with it,
Sure. Sure. When you taught at the high school level, were you teaching just the jazz group? Were you teaching orchestra and concert band? Or I mean, they always
it was
have different names. Like I coach at a high school, and there's like chamber, and then there's orchestra, then there's
Yeah. I had a rock like modern contemporary band
oh,
and
that's cool.
like jazz band, and then it was like I was doing mostly music theory, music history.
That's cool. That's cool. Where did you, for the high school age student, where do you start music history? Because I remember taking some of that in college, and we learned all the way back to Gregorian chants, and
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
that's where I start.
Okay, okay,
I did the same thing because in college it was like we learned it was premodal music, and you're going through like all that, and it's like, well, yeah, Gregorian chant is great because you're talking about monophonic versus homophonic versus
right.
as you're building out and you're building your different styles, why not? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
I
Could you keep their attention with it? If so,
I
amazing job at communicating the information.
I tried to find reasons to make it useful.
Okay,
So it was how do we spin it and make it something that somebody wants to learn? If you go really clinical on it, you're never going to get anybody to want. You're not going to get buy-in, right?
right, right.
So you have to spin it. You have to find buy-in from the people that are part of it. If you get the first follower, the
Yeah,
first follower is always the big thing,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And once you get somebody to kind of join in, everybody goes, yeah, oh, okay, I get that.
Right.
And I would apply it to, especially for the groups that I was working with, I'd apply it to rap.
Okay.
How can we make this, look at this as a sequence of, verbs or
Right.
words. How do we make this work? And it's like, if you could get that connection, you could find reason for it. Well, this led to this led to this.
Sure.
But I mean, I stopped teaching at the high school level probably about right at the end of 2019, right before COVID hit.
Okay.
I kind of bailed out on it. I just didn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. How long had you been
But
doing it?
about 14 years.
Oof, you were in
Yeah,
it.
I
Okay.
was doing it. Yeah, I was doing it for a long time. I mean, I've been teaching privately since 1997.
Okay.
So I was teaching private lessons as well all this
Yeah.
time. But the school was school I did about 14 years.
Oof.
And it was interesting. You always get music is a great part of it, but when you teach in a school, it's not like private lessons where you're dealing with a lot of different stuff. The kids are coming in. I used to keep extra food in a drawer because I had kids that show up that didn't have anything to eat.
Oh
So
wow.
I was trying to, you're doing guidance counselor slash music teacher.
Yeah, right, right, right.
I would teach coding on the side too. I'd be like, okay, let's learn a little bit about coding. I'd have them come in for lunch and like they'd come to my room and I'd be like, okay, well let's, what are we gonna do? So I grab the iPads. Let's do some coding. Let's learn how
Okay.
to code.
Okay.
Just another skill.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. I think that's. I mean, yeah, that's a whole different thing. I have a
It is, but
diverse
it
skill
isn't.
set.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It
It
is,
doesn't
but my
hurt.
point.
Yeah. Everything affects everything.
That's
It's
right.
like, so if you have another skill or you have some other way to connect, but going back to like, dealing as the, guidance counselor, you're like, you can't teach somebody who's hungry,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and unless they're hungry for knowledge, right?
Yeah, 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 right, right.
If they're physically hungry, you have to feed them. Otherwise, you're not going to get you can't get anybody to continue with you.
Sure, sure. We were talking about something right before that I wanted to. I don't remember, but the magazine. How long have
Oh
you
yeah.
been working with the magazine?
Oh, gosh. Think since 2012.
Okay, because when did
So
that split happen? Because
the
there,
split,
that's the which magazine do you work for again?
Bass Musician Magazine.
Bass
That's
Music.
Raul. Yeah, they're still going. They're
Is
still
that the
there.
one out of the UK?
No, Bass Musician Magazine is
Okay.
out of they were out of California. I think they moved to Vegas recently.
Okay.
But that's it's an online magazine. They've always been online. Everybody's gone online, but they were kind of the first ones. It's like No Treble, if you're familiar with No Treble
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. I remember actually. So I always get it confused that when like the old original OG bass player got bought out
Bass
by
Player Magazine,
yeah,
yeah.
when they got bought out
God.
by UK, and then the names got so confusing for me, and it's still
Yes.
difficult. Like I'm tight with the guys over at
Oh,
Chris
dude,
GC and John
check
Diora.
this out. So Chuck just sent me
Yeah,
a
yeah,
photo. It's Abbey Road. He's
yeah, yeah.
there.
Have you been there?
I have not been there. No, I haven't been to England. That's one place I haven't
I
been.
went there a couple years ago, and we definitely made the trip to go by Abbey and did the crosswalk and the whole bit, and it's cool. It's very
That's
cool.
nice. That's
Uh,
awesome. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's
oh
just
no, did
he
that
sent me a
just come
text of
in?
it right now. Yeah, he
Oh,
just sent
that's
it to me now. He's
amazing.
like, he's there, um, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I
dude.
got confused about what they all were, but now I remember Bass Musician
Yeah,
magazine
Bass
because they
Musician
used to have
Magazine.
hard copies in like the late '90s.
Bass Musician did not.
Really? Ever?
Yeah, bass player and there was like
Bass
bass
player did.
guitar and bass guitar.
Bass guitar. Oh, Basics. There was one called
Yeah,
Basics
there's
for
basics and then there was
yeah.
bass guitar, which was out of the UK. There's a bunch of them, and they all got consolidated and kind of went under. But
Right.
then there was like you have No Treble, you have Bass Musician, then there is Bass Magazine as well. So
Right.
there's a bunch of them out there. They all kind of everything bass related, and then there's that
Sure.
bass, Bass Pro.
Right. Oh, is that one too? I
No,
didn't even know about that
no,
one.
no, no. I was bass
Oh.
fishing.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, good. So, geez, so there's
But
another
no,
one to keep on.
I've been with them for a long time. They're really great because I started doing like I think I wrote about like teaching at one point with them, like how to get buy-in with students, and it was like an expose, and then it started doing like product reviews for them, and
I saw
God,
some of those where you were talking about the Phil Jones line.
yeah. So they send you some. It's interesting because the turnaround is really fast on something like that. So they'll send it to you. You're supposed to like you have it for like maybe a week at the most sometimes, and then you got to turn it back around. It's like you're trying to get enough time to actually use it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, and it's always funny because people are always kind of nasty, and when you read the comments and like when they post it, and like people are like, well, why didn't you know all the knobs? I'm like, well, I had the knobs written out because I only had it for a few days.
Yeah, yeah,
I also had these three other things that I'm looking at too, and it's
yeah.
like, if it was my full-time job and I was being paid for it, maybe,
Yeah,
most of that you're just doing for fun.
I mean, the comments people. That's a specific type of person who's gonna rant in the comments about something, and
Yeah.
and then when it comes to gear, you're gonna get all the folks that like to troll talk bass and
Oh, yeah.
posture themselves as if they're the end all be all in their opinion is the only thing that ever matters. You're always gonna get those people like
Well,
whatever.
I always my advice for all bass players is, be nice to each other because the only people that care about bass players are other bass players.
Yeah, right. And
Nobody
even
else
that, like
cares.
marginally, like,
Yeah, it's nobody cares about the bass player.
right, yeah.
Oh, what instrument do you play? Oh, okay.
Oh, cool. So what's that like? Kind of
Yeah.
guitar or something?
Couldn't you get more strings? Was it too
Yeah, right.
expensive?
What are you working on now for them?
So right now we have a series that I've been working on called Working Class Zeros. I don't know if you saw that at all, but
I
it's
did, yeah.
basically it's a buddy of mine who also lives in the armpit of the East. Him and I, we both work in a bunch of different bands in the area, playing like we all sub and do stuff like that. And basically, we're talking about like what the working class musician, the guy who's working the 9 to 5, and the things that you deal with. That if you're coming onto the scene and you're like, hey, what do I need? You know, there's a segment we
So
always
like the
call.
weekend, like what would a weekend warrior need
Well,
to
well,
be successful?
yeah, but everybody's a weekend warrior. Let's
Sure.
be honest.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, everybody has some other source of income because you're not there's very few and far between that are able to survive off of just playing bass. You have to have something.
On a local level, you
Yeah,
can't. Like if
even
you're touring,
international,
maybe.
even international. I have a lot of friends who, when they're not on the road, they're back working another job. You know, because it's just that's the reality, and there's no shame in the game. I mean,
No, no,
let's
no.
be honest with it. You know,
Yeah,
if you have a family and you got to keep yourself afloat, take the gig.
yeah, yeah. Sure.
If you come back and you got to pay for braces for
Yeah.
your kid,
Right, right, right,
you got to
right.
do the thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
I
right.
mean, I know there's a couple guys who try to like fake like they're not working a day gig. And it's like, dude, don't hate on it. You probably that day gig probably inspired you to do something with this.
What it
It's
will at least do, because I've talked to students about this that just want to, when they get out of school or whatever, just want to gig full time and do all that. I'm like, one, good luck. The scene is not what you think it is. Two, it doesn't matter where you get money. Like all that
yeah,
is just a source of income that
yeah,
doesn't have any direct reflection on your artistry or what you're saying on the instrument or what you're contributing when you play. So like kind of put a thing there that it's not,
yeah.
you don't have to do that and you're successful if you are
Well,
only making all your money. Who cares where you make your money?
well,
It doesn't matter. Go get a
yeah,
stable job so you can buy better gear.
it's always ask until they have to buy health insurance.
Right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
good luck with that one.
Yeah, right.
It's so if you have, I always tell people, Apple, I have so many people that have come to me and are like, "Hey, I want to work at Apple." I'm like, Apple's a great place to work because even when you're part-time, you have health insurance.
Right, right. Do you work for Apple?
I do. I'm a creative pro for Apple as well.
Okay. What do you create?
I'm a trainer, so I
Okay.
teach people how to use Logic, Final Cut. I do all that
Oh,
stuff.
okay. For
I
a
teach all
lot of
the
their
classes.
software.
Yeah, software.
Okay.
I've been with Apple for 13 years,
Oh wow. Oh wow.
part-time.
So at one point, were you doing teaching at school and Apple, or was
Yes,
there a transition?
same time.
And gigging and writing and
Yes, yes, yeah.
man. So
Yeah,
what
not a
your
lot of
day
sleep.
has 26 hours? Like how did you
Yeah,
make this
yeah.
happen?
Well, yeah. I've added a few more just to
Yeah.
keep it toasty.
Of course, of course. That's insane, man. Yeah, I'm running rag and doing all the stuff I'm doing, and I don't.
It's
When I hear
it's
about people doing even more, I'm just like, jeez.
it's hard. I mean, and that's the thing. Like even talking about like the guy who wants if you get out there and you try to hustle the gigs, and we all tried that. I mean, I did that too, where it's
Of
like
course.
I'm only gonna hustle. I'm only gonna make music. And it's like almost becomes tiring, right? Because it's like you're constantly chasing after it to make sure that it stays there because it's not guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed, but at least if you have something to kind of depend on a little bit, you
Right.
end up in a little bit better place.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Do you do the booking for the cover band?
Unfortunately, yes.
Oof, oof.
Yeah, I do.
What's the scene like there? I mean, here in LA, maybe it's my perspective. Maybe it's because of my age. I'm 42, and I'm just at a certain point, whatever with the local scene. Like, I'm not interested in playing jazz in the corner of some craft
Yeah,
beer. Like, I don't care anymore. I don't want to go play. I don't. It's not worth
it
it to me.
it
So
depends on the gig.
I dipped out a little bit. I'm
Yeah,
not exactly sure what the scene was like. I knew what it was like pre-COVID. I took COVID to kind of get into more teaching and get into some
yeah,
other things. Um, so the scene here to me is pretty dismal.
yeah.
What's the scene like over on
It's
your
it's
end?
it's similar here too. We have a really sketchy scene as well. I mean, it's you, if you're willing to travel, if you're willing to travel into New York and make no money, you can definitely do it.
Hmm.
Um, you're it's going to cost you. You're going to pay about $30 to get through the tunnel and the
Right.
tolls to
Yeah,
make
right.
to make $50 a man if you're lucky.
Right, right. Then you got to pay out of pocket to come back.
Yeah, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
right.
And then, there's the local gigs. You can network and work like I'm also close to like the Poconos, and there's a number of places that you can like resorts and stuff that you can play. Like if you want to play that cocktail gig in the corner, you can
Right,
do
right.
that. But I think it comes down to, you have to decide like, it's the gig triangle. You know about the gig triangle, right?
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah,
Yeah, is there money? Are the people you're playing with good, or is the music good?
yeah, yeah.
It almost never has all those three items, right?
Right,
It normally has two.
right.
So normally in this area, it's the people and the music.
Okay.
That's the
At
way
least
I
the
decided,
music's
'cause-
one of them.
yeah, yeah.
You
So the
know.
music, at least you get to stretch out, you get to play the music you want to play, and get to hang out with the people you like.
Right.
There's not a there's it's not a problem of finding a place. The problem is that you're up against other musicians who are so desperate to play that they'll play for a ham sandwich, you know?
Right.
So that becomes problematic.
Yeah.
But, you know, what are your options? Well, you can either create the music and put the music, and I think that's probably the wiser thing to do. Is that if you want to take it as if you're starting out in this, or even just you're starting a new band, record your projects, get your projects out, put them out somewhere that they're making money, or at least they're in a resource that can be found. Instead of going, okay, let's put a band together, let's play some clubs.
Right.
You don't make any money playing the clubs. You're like, oh, I'm gonna make a CD. It's almost like it's the high school mantra, right?
It is, and I
that-
think that I mean you have no audience also, so like
Yep.
who's going to come out? The first gig, your friends and family maybe. Okay, cool. If you play the next month, they've heard it. You'll
Yeah,
get
and-
half of that friends and family base, and then it's just diminishing returns after that. And by
Correct.
gig 5, you're playing for the bartender.
Yep, and that's kind of what happens anyway. Especially if you like, we had we had one night at a place for we did this for about a year. We had one night that was slotted to us. And so what we did was we started with it, and it was a hodgepodge jazz thing. It was actually the band that we were doing all the weather report stuff.
Oh, cool.
And we started covering some of the Swallow stuff too, some of Steve Swallow stuff. And we started bringing in other players with us, and eventually it ran its course. It's like it's like a band. Band only has so many life cycles to it before it's done.
Steve, thanks for taking the time, man. This has been great. Please come back on anytime. I think we got a
love
lot
to.
more. I think we got a lot more in the tank that we can cover for sure.
I'd love to.
Killer.
Yo, this is Craig Gash. Subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the Instagram, the YouTube. Leave us a comment.
All right. That was my talk with Steve, the bass guy Rosati. Like I said, right after we did the interview, I went and got some labellas. Steve was right. I can't wait to have Steve back on the show another time. I feel like there's a lot of other topics within the bass world we can talk about, and the conversation can go so many places with Steve. It's absolutely fantastic. Again, check out his work with Bass Musician Magazine. Links to that are in the show notes, along with his YouTube channel, and some of his educational videos are up there. So check him out, Steve the Bass Guy. That's all I got, folks. That's all I got for this one. I will catch you on the next one in a minute.